I'd like to welcome today's panelists, Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Chike Ogia, former Commissioner of Information, Delta State, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Well, welcome to today's edition of This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. Professor Akintenwa, as you can see, Arise News is observing social distancing. It's just you and I together in this studio. Yemi Adamolekun and Chike Ogia are in another studio. But let's start with our first story today, which is about COVID-19. In the last week, the Nigerian government has taken quite a number of measures to address COVID-19. And lockdowns have also begun in Africa, across Africa, as the pandemic coronavirus cases rise to a total of 1,213 recorded, with 36 deaths across the continent. The Nigerian government on Saturday announced it is closing airports to all incoming international flights for 1 month in the continent's most populous country. Nigeria's international flight ban came a day after the airport in Johannesburg blocked foreigners from disembarking, and 2 major airlines, Ethiopian Airlines and South African Airways, also announced sweeping cancellations of international flights. The number of cases in Nigeria as of today has risen to 27 in total. Apart from the federal government shutting down all the international airports in Nigeria, we've also been told in Lagos State that public gatherings have been banned, that churches also should not have a congregation that has more than 50 persons in attendance. Although today, a lot of people defied that. Schools have been shut down across Nigeria, including tertiary institutions. Businesses have also been told to take necessary precautions. Nigeria is in a state of lockdown, if we may say so, and everyone has been asked to observe social distancing. You can see, Prof, that you have about 2 meters between the two of us, and Chike and Yemi, who are also part of this program today, are somewhere else in another studio. But Prof, let me start with you. What's your assessment? Do you think that government is now in a panic mode? And if so, is it justifiable?
Panic mode, yes. Justifying that, yes, of course. I think it's a good development generally. It clearly shows the extent to which people prepare for emergencies. I look at this development at 3 different complementary levels. The first is the biblical injunction. I think that God has his hands in this particular development. If you go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 26, verse 20 and verse 21. In fact, they are the last 2 verses in chapter 26. There, Isaiah made it clear to the world that the time will come when every person will be required to stay indoor, all right, for safety. Because God is now much annoyed with the whole world because of our iniquities. Now, what was clearly described in that particular chapter, verses 20 and 21, is what we are witnessing today. Stay indoor so that we will not be part of the anger, manifestation of God, wrath. The second level is...
Well, Prof, before you come up with that second level, let me go to Yemi. Yemi? Yes, Yemi, sorry, I hope you don't feel isolated. It's the age of social distancing.
It's all good. It's for a season, so we're good.
Quickly, I would like to ask you, the federal government advised that churches should not hold service today, and if at all, they shouldn't take in more than 50 persons. But many of the churches defied this. Should the church behave in that manner?
just to be clear, the instruction was on large gatherings, so it wasn't particular to churches or religious institutions. In Lagos yesterday, we saw footage of La Sepa shutting down a surprise birthday party where they were expecting 500 people. So it's not peculiar to religious institutions. However, on the issue of churches in particular, yesterday, the Christian Association of Nigeria wrote a letter instructing pastors that if people showed up for service, that they should not be turned back, and that service should go ahead, and then gave some guidelines around social distancing, using sanitizer, and a few other things, but that service should go on. So we saw a varied response. There were some churches that strictly had an online service. There were some that had a small group of people in church, so they had a bit of music, the pastor was in church to preach, but then they live streamed everything else. There wasn't a congregation welcome in church. And then we had churches like Winners Chapel, Living Faith, that had service, and they had also sent out a memo as COSA in Abuja that they were going to go ahead with service. And it's problematic. I think there was a news story that there was a church in the West Midlands in the UK where 2 deaths were connected to a parishioner who did not know he had the disease and went to church. And then 2 other people got it and then died invariably. So I think I'd really like to appeal to anyone and everyone watching, religious institutions, companies, any unnecessary gathering. You can have church that doesn't require people to be physically present. Same for Jumat or prayers, Jumat prayers, or those who have prayers on Sundays. Anything that can help us stem the tide of this virus, we need to take it seriously. Nigeria has suddenly gone from 1 to 27 in the space of 2 weeks. And now the Lagos Ministry of Health has said 2 flights, a KLM flight, a British Airways flight, has a confirmed case on it. So they're trying to track everybody that was on that flight to monitor them. We had rumors of a gentleman that was at a public function who wasn't feeling well. So you're now having these issues of people who have come in on flights from countries that were considered risky. Self-isolation is recommended. And it seems that people are not taking it seriously. And I really like to implore that we do. I mean, take Ghana, for example. If you land in Ghana from a risky country, automatic quarantine for 2 weeks. It's not, do you feel like? It's not a question. It's automatic. In Uganda, also automatic. If you come in and you have a fever, we will quarantine you. If you don't want to be quarantined, they put you on the plane back to where you were coming from. And I think Nigeria really needs to take this thing very seriously. Our population is multiples of both Uganda and Ghana. And if they're taking it that seriously, we really, really need to take it seriously.
What are your thoughts on this subject? There are some people who are saying, well, they are children of faith, they are children of God, and that they will not be affected.
There's a delicate balance between faith and science. And I think, yes, there's a place for faith, but there's also a place for common sense. I'll find it in the break. There was something that Martin Luther had shared about obeying the law and obeying protocol, at the same time believing in God. If you have a headache or you need heart surgery, you don't sit at home and say God will heal it. Well, let me take that back. There's a particular denomination that doesn't subscribe to medical help. But for those who are saying this, when you need things done, you obey laws, you find doctors, and at that point, you're not even looking for a Christian doctor. You're looking for the best in the field that can keep you healthy. So hiding under I'm a child of faith is, it's not even being scriptural, let me put it that way. It's not, I mean, two of the disciples were doctors, if for that. So the gift of being a doctor or being a professional doesn't in any way contradict your faith.
Chike, are you there with me?
I'm where you kept me.
Hello, Chike.
I'm right here.
Yes, I would like to have your thoughts on this very interesting but painful subject.
Well, I don't know. Excuse me. I guess Yemi has said most of what needs to be said. The downside is that we are just too many in Nigeria. And if you look at the numbers that are flaring up now, they are still quite insignificant compared to our population. But like Yemi rightly said, all the countries that are reporting thousands were at some point 2 or 22. So we have to be careful. I think the most important thing is to observe the protocols very strictly. It's very, very extremely inconveniencing. A lot of people, your lifestyle, everything has to change. But the prayer is that it should be for a season. And when we keep talking about church, I mean, there are mosques as well. So whatever that is happening in churches will also happen to mosques, irrespective of your faith. It's just a matter of doing, the right thing, if you ask me. And I think in all of this, we should be able to come out with one thing, and this, I'm sure, will appeal to the mass of our people. They normally get some sense of safety from the four walls of a church or a mosque or something, and that is why going to the church for them is more of the issue than the connection they are supposed to have with their God. So we should understand that the church or the mosque is really in our hearts, in our minds, and it does not matter where we are. For instance, I don't have to be in a church to talk to God or to listen to God or to hear from God. Once I want to pray, and wherever I am, I go on my knees, and I feel the connection. I know, I'm talking to my Father. Many times I'm even in church, and I don't feel that connection. So it depends. You could be in church and your mind is elsewhere, but it's all about the concentration and your spirituality and your level of connection, as I said, to God. So it is something that is global. A lot of people are laughing at us. They say this is more for the big men. Right now, they are isolating us big men, in quotes, as they see us, because the first thing they ask you is, have you just come back from London? Have you just come back from America?
We'll have to take a short break. Whoever is just coming back from London or the US or elsewhere will have to go on self-isolation. It's time now for a break here on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. Don't go away. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitac Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Chike Ogea, former Commissioner of Information, Delta State, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Now let's take another subject, the devaluation of the Naira. Recently, it was reported that the central bank technically devalued the Naira to exchange to the dollar at 380 Naira. The Apex Bank took this decision after all interventions in the market, such as imposing sanctions on errant operators and the use of moral suasion to curb illegal forex operations, did not sustain the exchange rate of 360 Naira. In a circular to the operators in the sector, the CBN matched the rates at both the Bureau de Change and investors and exporters window at 380 Naira. The Central Bank of Nigeria, Governor Godwin Emefiele, who was speaking to the press on Saturday after a meeting with the Bankers Committee comprising mainly chief executive officers of Nigerian banks, had this to say about the devaluation of the Naira.
It's an adjustment in currency, and of course, we have often been accused that we have a hand. We don't have a hand. What happens is that we allow the I&E window, which is a dominant market, to dictate the exchange rate in the market. So what we've done is that in the I&E window, there are buyers and sellers of foreign exchange. There are people that need FX. There are people who want to provide FX in the market. So what has happened is that at this time, central bank says, I'm providing FX in that market at 380. If you have dollar and you want to provide yours at higher than 380, go ahead, but provide it in the market so as for us to use it to fund our domestic obligations. What does that also mean? If you recall in 2016, 2017, there was a time the exchange rate rose to as high as 420. People were speculating to go higher. But up till recently, up till last week, the exchange rate was about 360. So what are we saying again? I&E window is a market where I provide FX, you provide FX. You determine the price based on what you have available. So I'm saying today, I provide FX at 380. If you have, provide yours. If I think mine can come at a lower price, I provide at a lower price. So that is what is happening. It is an adjustment, but in economics, in foreign exchange management language, it is not a devaluation.
Well, Chike, let me come to you. I mean, a lot of semantics there. In the last 48 hours or so, we've had technical devaluation, whatever that means. Devaluation is devaluation. We've had adjustment in price, whatever that means. You know, what is clear is that, you know, the Naira is not as strong or as stable as we will expect it to be. The Naira has been depreciating. And, you know, once you devalue your currency, where are the advantages? For an import-dependent economy, it's not as if we're exporting anything. But what's your take? Do you think it's adjustment in price, technical devaluation, or just devaluation, simplicity? But the good news, of course, is that we now have a fixed exchange rate window instead of the multiple windows that we had previously and that everyone had advised against. Chike, I'll come to you.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm not the financial expert, but this touches and concerns me personally. So really and truly speaking, I was just listening to what the central bank governor was saying now, and I was just smiling inside of me. He says it's not a devaluation. Then what is it? He says I and E window, and of course, willing buyer, willing seller. What we have is what we can provide. You have already fixed a price based on what you have. Of course, basically in fact, this is the time to devalue, this is time to deregulate everything in Nigeria. We might as well just take this God-given opportunity. Even the fuel or PMS or diesel or whatever we call it. You know, I think diesel has been deregulated all this while anyway. So the truth is simple. I think about 15%, the value of a Naira we've lost 15% of the value of a Naira as we speak right now. And I would implore the CBN governor to go a step further, tweak with more of your monetary policies so that, because what we seem to be having now seems to be a double whammy, if you ask me. We have Naira in the bank for those that have deposits, and they get absolutely nothing as interest, even when these monies are fixed. Meanwhile, the banks are charging you all kinds of charges for everything, card charges, this charge, alert charge, that charge, everything. And you have some money in your account, whether in your current account or in your fixed deposit account, and the money is just disappearing every day without you even touching it. So in the face of these new realities, I think these are the things that the central bank should look at. They should go and look at, you know, rates for fixed deposits, because you can't just continue to impoverish the people. Sooner than later, it will also have an effect on the banking system, because there will be little or no liquidity. The liquidity ratios will drop. There will be no money for people to spend. And the poverty that we are all trying to run away will be spread all over the country. Whether we like it or not, this is a country where the strong always helps the weak in one or two of our social interventions, whether be it family, traditional, or whatever. But those things are getting weaker by the day, because those people that are people back in the village are looking up for the different interventions we normally make. We ourselves are getting totally impoverished out here. So I think, you know, thank God we have this, the advisors, the economic advisors and all of that. I think they should all go and put their thinking cap on and see how we can stimulate this economy again. Because right, with the advent of this coronavirus, with the advent of Russia playing these games they are playing with Saudi Arabia, and then we can't, all our oil, the other time we were told that we had 20 cargoes off the shores of the country. Nobody is taking them. We know how much it is to produce a barrel of oil here in Nigeria. It's way above what they are selling it for. I mean, we are looking at an almost imminent collapse of our economy if something seriously is not done. That is I'm talking as a financial illiterate, but just as it concerns me. So I think the people that are versed with this, that's why when people like Atedo Peter Side speak, I like to listen to him. You know, they should try and do something. Maybe expand that that base of advisors that we have here. Get some more, you know, eggheads in there that can come and really tell us how we can get out of this. Because we cannot hide under the fact that this is a global crisis, and by the time the world starts to recover, we will be totally done. That is my fear about this.
Absolutely correct. In the face of devaluation, there will be winners and losers. But the big concern is that the ordinary people, will bear the brunt of it in terms of inflation, perhaps, in terms of the new minimum national wage not have any effect, purchasing power being further reduced, and then, of course, the exporters who are supposed to gain from this. Are we really exporting anything? So many misalignments, and then, of course, a bigger concern is the fact that these policies are made and introduced piecemeal, and you get the impression that we're just governing on an ad hoc basis in terms of what we do with the Naira.
You said it all. Thank you.
Yes, but let me have your input on this subject of so-called adjustment of price.
And I think for me, the biggest thing is just the level of distrust that it breeds. So you have a global pandemic, you have what is and is going to be a financial crisis for a bit to come. And as you said yourself, what Nigerians would expect to hear is sort of a robust response to what is going on. These are our policies that we've put in place. This is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to do. And also do it in a sense, as Nigerians like to say, do it with your chest. Do it confidently because you're clear about what you're presenting. So bankers woke up to find out that the price has changed. I mean, there wasn't a meeting with the bankers committee. There wasn't a soft notice for them to say, this is what we are thinking. And based on that, these are the decisions that we're going to take. So you say you're adjusting an exchange rate that in effect is a devaluation. As you said, technical lingo. So Nigerians are sitting here going, okay, we're dealing with people who are not being honest, yet we have to run an economy. Price of oil is half of what our budget says it is. We import a lot of things, despite borders being closed, supposedly, but now they're even going to be on complete shut, well, except for cargoes. Borders are closed to people now, but we import a lot of things, and this would increase price for an environment where a lot of people make their money day to day. So, I mean, my own long story short of this is, in the midst of all that people are worried about with COVID, having a central bank not communicate clearly, and having a president not communicate clearly with his citizens doesn't bode well for building confidence and building a sense of we're in this together, everybody hunkered down, we will make it through. And really that's what we need. And it's unfortunate that we don't have it at this time.
Chike and Yemi, or you disagree with them?
I am beginning to see the beauty, of social distancing. Because now I think we should introduce opinion distancing. As much as I appreciate the validity of the points raised by Chike and Yemi, I do not subscribe to the concluding points there. You see, every discipline has its own language. Every profession has its own protocol and etiquette. When, for instance, you are in the diplomatic parlance, when you do not want to say something directly, you do not want to attend to a kind invitation, you talk about diplomatic illness. In economics, in economics here, you do not want to talk about devaluation. You come up with the argument of adjustment. So in this case, technical argument is very valid. The issue is that multiple foreign exchange system used to be the determinants of the value of the Naira from 2016 to date. Having existence of multiple rates, those are the determinants. And those are the determinants now that are being redefined. So in this case, I will subscribe to the argument of the CBN governor that actually the technicity as distinct from the technicality of devaluation. Those are the issues. I subscribe with the position of
semantics apart. The measurement will be in terms of the effect in the markets and also in the lives of Nigerians. It's time now for a break here on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. Don't go away. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, Professor Bola Akintonowa, Director General, Bolitac Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Chike Ogea, former Commissioner of Information, Delta State, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Now, let's take another subject. The Lagos State government on Wednesday said that 276,000 persons have been displaced by gas inferno, the gas inferno that engulfed the Abule Ado and Shoba areas of the state. Dr. Oluwafemi Okeosonyitolu, Director General at Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, disclosed this to newsmen in Lagos while assessing the damage at the scene of the incident. Meanwhile, representatives of the Nigeria Governors Forum, led by Dr. Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, on Saturday visited the Abule Edo explosion site in Lagos for an on-the-spot assessment of the devastating effects of recent gas explosions that claimed many lives and destroyed several properties worth billions of naira. The Nigeria Governors Forum, an umbrella forum of the 36 state governors, donated 200 million naira to the Abule Ado Shoba Emergency Relief Fund set up by the Lagos State government.
Microphone to him to tell us what he had seen and what the message from the Nigerian Governors Forum is. Mr. Chairman, sir.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. My brother governors, Governor Umar Ganduje of Kano State and Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State. We would have had a much larger delegation. Our Director General is here too, Ashushana Okauru. But our colleagues wanted us to first come, have a sense of what had transpired and the extent of the unfortunate incident that occurred here. And I want to thank Governor Sanwo-Olu, the Deputy Governor, the development. So for us, it's both an on-the-spot assessment as to the recommendation we will make as the Nigerian Governors Forum on how to tackle this perennial problem and what to do with the relocation or protection, at least, of lives and property along pipeline corridor, because we all know how inflammable and combustible oil is. And if people live in that corridor without let or hindrance, that's what we will see. And we want to particularly commend the governor for the way they've managed to secure the place. Any loss of life is unfortunate, but when I learned of the figures, and my colleagues and I learned of the figures of those we lost here, we were actually shocked that we didn't lose more people than we did, because the situation and the destruction we've seen around probably ought to have resulted in
Well, Prof, that's the update on the tragedy that occurred at the Amuwo-Odofin area of Lagos last Sunday. We now know that about 276,000 persons have been displaced, 50 houses destroyed, a whole school, was lost to that explosion. The students were injured. The administrator of the school, a reverend sister, died. Another priest died when the school collapsed, and so many lost their lives. But we've seen the federal government, the state government, the Lagos state government, putting together, a relief fund, and Lagos state has contributed about 250 million naira. And then we've seen the Governors Forum also contributing another 200 million naira. But that's no replacement for the lives that have been lost, the properties that have been destroyed. What more do you think government should do to prevent this kind of a situation in the future?
Yeah, I thank you for this very thought-provoking question. What can the government do in the distant and in the foreseeable future? I think we must first of all ask one question. Why is it that we have houses, schools, along the pipeline corridor? like Governor Payemi had spoken about. Why? When you look at the town planning structure bequeathed to us by the colonial masters, you will discover that things like this, all the things we are witnessing today as problems, they were already foreseen and taken care of. Why is it now that in the post-independence era, people who were trained in the same Britain, in America, Europe, they now come back and suddenly they will be given approval for schools to be set up along a pipeline corridor? No, it's most unfortunate. There is the need to look at that particular factor. If we want to really prevent these scenarios in the future, I think it is the town planning. It is the way, the manner, the recklessness that has come to characterize the issuance of approvals. Those are the things we should first of all look at before we can think of going to bed with our two eyes closed.
Well, Chike, you must have had Prof's contribution on this subject. Do you agree with him or you disagree?
But the situation about Abule Ado, it's a very, very unfortunate situation. It's one of those things we live with in Nigeria that happens time and time again, and we begin to wonder when we will do the right thing. Why a settlement will be so close to the pipeline is what I don't understand. Even if we did not have this kind of explosion, I can assure you that the toxic fumes that will be emitted in that place cannot be good for people's health. And these are human beings that are supposed to live there. This permits to build these houses.
Just by way of information, I mean, we've had another version of the story, that this is not about pipeline explosion, but that there is also a gas processing plant in that neighborhood, and it was actually a gas explosion.
I'm aware of everything. There are so many conspiracy theories, Ruben, as you well know, in Nigeria when these things happen. There are even some people that I spoke to that live around there that can swear that it was a bomb. This has nothing to do with gas explosion or what they say. It was a bomb. They believe it was a terrorist attack. They believe that that place is populated by more of an ethnic group, and those are the ethnic groups that people are trying to cleanse out of this country. So there are all those conspiracy theories out there. That is not even my issue. My issue remains that we have ministries for physical planning, we have ministries for lands and survey and all of these things that should give out the permission for houses, warehouses and where estates should be laid out. Why should there be a settlement in that kind of place? That is the question I keep asking. And if it has been there from 40, 60 years ago, when do we start correcting it? It's all over the place, not even just there. On the outskirts of Lagos, the Mowe axis, all those places that flares up from time to time that we see all this pipeline burst and all of that. I don't care what causes the death of so many people. The idea is that people have died. So whether it's a pipeline burst, whether there were gas cylinders that blew up, whether it was somebody, they said some trailer reversed into something, whatever it is, we have this calamity of so many deaths. And most of the time, these deaths are premature and needless. We don't need to keep killing our own people because of all these kind of deficiencies we have in governance. That is the point I'm trying to make. And I think people should wake up. Look, this is 2020. Generations are fast going by. For instance, in 2023, going forward, I don't think any president of Nigeria should be more than maybe 60 or 55. We have to start getting real with a lot of things we are doing. We are still stuck in the past. And that is why we have all these issues we have in Nigeria. We're still grappling with power, we're still grappling with water, and then, you know, people have to make their whole, become their local government all by themselves.
Let me come to you, Yemi. Yemi, do you hold the same opinion, or you have a different position on this?
I think I'll take it from the angle of the emergency fund. So there are 2 weeks. The government has set up an investigative panel to find out what happened. So we'll have a definitive answer. So all our conspiracy theories can be put to rest. But what is clear is that what has happened in that area and other areas in Lagos is a lack of obeying laws. So buildings springing up without proper permits, without proper, and proper permits would allow the right types of buildings with the right structures, paying particular attention to the the terrain of the space. The area was a residential area, so having a gas processing plant there makes no sense, in addition to the pipelines that are running through as well. But I think for me, all that being said, what was also very concerning was the emergency fund that Governor Sanwo-Olu set up. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was a 1 billion naira, of which he said the Lagos state government has put in 250 million, and I believe Dangote and some other person have contributed as well. Again, governance issues. To set up a fund of this nature, what are the terms of reference? Who's in charge of the fund? Who's going to manage disbursements of monies? The families that were affected, how do they get access to it? What is the state offering to give? Are you relocating people? Are you rebuilding homes? Are you giving a stipend for everybody? What exactly are the terms of reference? So we raised $1 billion in a state where people pay tax, where people are still complaining that we're probably overtaxed, and you're asking us to, in a sense, provide an emergency tax in a format of which there's no clarity around how you plan to spend it. Lagos can do a lot better, and particularly Mr. Sanwo-Olu, Governor Sanwo-Olu can do a lot better in providing clarity around asking Lagosians for money. We give. People give to churches, give to other causes, and people can choose to support, but an anchor foundation, how you plan to spend this money and who the money will be given to and for what.
Yemi, absolutely. There must be clarity, there must be accountability, there must be full disclosure. It's time now for a short break here on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, I have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Chike Ogia, former Commissioner of Information, Delta State, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director in Office Enough. Let's take the next subject. President Muhammadu Buhari recently approved the reduction in the pump price of premium motor spirit, also known as Petrol. He gave the approval after a cabinet meeting presentation by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva. The price reduction comes amidst the slump in the global price of crude, largely impacted by the coronavirus. The price of crude oil has continued to drop from $60 to below $30 a barrel. The government says it will now allow the price of crude to determine the price of the product in Nigeria, effectively deregulating prices, it would seem. Well,
all trading arm of the NN.
As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, you are all aware that oil prices have drastically dropped. And we know that this really will translate to a lot of sufferings on the part of Nigerians. Therefore, the President has graciously approved that the pump price of petrol should also accordingly drop. So the pump price of petrol will be from now 125 for now. If there is any further drop, it will even drop further. 125 naira per liter will be the pump price of petrol for the time being.
Well, Chike, I'll come to you on this subject because you already alluded to it earlier on when you were commenting on a related subject. But the truth of the matter, is this really deregulation? Should the original announcement have been made by NNPC and the minister? And what do you expect to see going forward?
Well, I think, Ruben, is deregulation through the back door. And like I said, this government, I think, is one of the luckiest governments we've ever had. This pandemic has presented them with the best opportunity to achieve a total deregulation of the downstream of the Nigerian oil sector, which, yes, might be a bit painful now, but thank God we will even start from a situation where there will be some breaks, because we are going to now start reacting to the volatility of prices. And right now, if anything, you know, we can enjoy the benefits of this. Just like they said, we take the brunt and we take the benefit. The only snag I saw in the whole tweaking of the whole thing was that the minister, like you rightly alluded to, gave this directive to the NNPC. And that's why there's a little confusion in the whole thing right now. I think the directive should rightly have been given to the PPRA. Those are the guys that are, yes, that are the regulators and the ones that can tweak with the price modulation, not the NNPC. So, and that is why we had a situation where the NNPC says, look, nobody has told us anything. We will just go on with what we have to do. And PPRA says, hey, maybe not until the 1st of next month before we can review, you know, take a totality of the factors we have to take into consideration before we can come, you know, to a conclusion on this matter. So if you ask me, I think the government should sort itself out. Yes, the president has given his directive and approval that, you know, the prices should come down right now because, of course, OPEC has to even avoid a glut, you know, which is the whole idea of the organization in the first place, so that the commodity is not totally worthless. But the truth is that, yes, we are going through this period now. Nigerians will enjoy a bit of what is going on by the price coming down, but let them seize the opportunity and have a total and holistic review of the downstream sector with a view to a total deregulation. That is my opinion.
What have you observed at the petrol stations? It looks like, whereas NNPC stations are, you know, respecting this new directive, other marketers and dealers seem not to be concerned.
I think Shike drew attention to that particular misunderstanding there, that instruction was given basically to the NNPC. So the PPR, all others do not feel concerned. But I think that reduction from 145 Naira per litre to 125 Naira per litre doesn't mean much to me. It's not a big deal. It doesn't address the problem. The bitter truth in the filling station is this. First of all, many of the equipment, vending machines, all right, they have been adjusted in such a way that it is permanently fraudulent. If, for instance, I'm buying petrol, PMS worth 500 Naira, I expect to have 4 liters, all right? 125 Naira per liter times 4 will give me 500. But when they are dispensing there, especially if you make the mistake of telling the petrol attendant that you want to fill up your tank, by that time you will see now it is the pumping in of air rather than petrol. The dishonesty is there. And again, I look at another dimension. For instance, will the reduction from 145 Naira per liter to 125 Naira per liter be translated into practical life with the commercialists, the commercial vehicles? Are they going to reduce the cost of transportation, say, from Lagos to Kano? No. Our life history here, we are used to that. Whenever there is an increase in price of transportation, it doesn't go back. And that is the issue. So if you reduce the price only for the transporters and the commuters to be facing to go with the status quo, I wouldn't see much impact.
Well, what should be noted, of course, is that what the Petroleum Products Prices Regulatory Agency, PPRA, is saying about modulation is that if tomorrow the spot price of crude goes up to $60 per barrel, then of course the pump price of fuel at the stations will also rise, as long as we're clear about that. But Yemi, what do you think is the long-term solution? Some people are saying, why should we be dependent on imported refined products. Why can't we get our refineries working here so that if the refineries are working, then perhaps even if we don't produce enough for local capacity, we can at least eliminate all those customs charges, landing charges, and that petrol can even sell at a lower amount at the fuel stations. What do you think?
I think since I got into this space in 2011, being a part of the Occupy Nigeria protest in 2012, what's been clear is every year that I've at least paid attention, there's been a budget for turnaround maintenance for our refineries, and no administration has been able to get those refineries working. And that says for me clearly there's not an interest in getting it working, because as we've seen by several reports, the fraud on our subsidy scheme makes a lot more sense than getting refineries to work, so we're not importing. Dangote will hopefully come upstream in the next, I don't know, maybe 2 years. But as everybody keeps saying, Dangote is in the business of a business to make money. So Dangote, yes, he's Nigerian, yes, he's on Nigerian soil, but he will be refining and selling, not offering any subsidy because he's not government. He's in business. Thirdly, again, back to the conversation around technicality, around adjustment and devaluation. If the Nigerian government is not honest about deregulating the downstream sector, as you said, when the price goes back up and you now want to increase fuel price again, people will get on the streets again and protest, because we're not doing the hard work to educate Nigerians on why things are being done, and then backing that action with financial prudence in the way governance works. 2012, the biggest thing was the fact that you wanted to take away a subsidy, yet we could see clearly that there was corruption in government that you are not trying to curb. And if we go down that route again this time around, it would also be problematic. And the signs are already there that the government is not being honest around this sector. Lastly, you mentioned other petroleum sellers or other stations and their pricing. I really just want to commend Bovas, as they automatically changed their price, and they've been consistent over the years in just following the letter of the law when it comes to pricing.
Thank you very much, Yemi Adamolekun. Thank you, Chike Ogia. Thank you very much, Professor Akintenwa. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. See you next week.